Comic strips are as uniquely American as baseball and Thanksgiving. For the past 85 years, the Funnies have entertained us on stage, screen, radio, and television. Tonight, we proudly present the truly Fantastic Funnies.
Come join us now, Fantastic Funnies, oh wow! From Beetle Bailey to Charlie Brown, from Dagwood Homestead to Hagar's Town, they're great. And how fantastic funnies are now.
Welcome to the Fantastic Funnies, starring as your host, the beautiful star of WKRP in Cincinnati, Lonnie Anderson. With special guest star Johnny Fever himself, Howard Hessman, and special added attraction Keen Curtis and Patricia Patz from the hit musical Annie. Also starring 15 of the most famous cartoonists in comic strip history, plus animation of 25 of your favorite all-time comic characters. All this and much more on the Fantastic Funnies.
They're great, and how fantastic funnies, oh wow! From Orphan Annie to Ballyhoo, from Barney Google to Mama Sue, they're great, and how fantastic funnies are now.
The Fantastic Funnies, sponsored by Kellogg's. Starting your mornings with Kellogg's will help you say, it's gonna be a great day.
Good evening and welcome to our very special show. By a strange coincidence, at one time in my life, I was going to be an animator. In fact, I studied art at the University of Minnesota. But never in my wildest dreams did I ever think that someday I would be animated. But in order for me to gather up all our stars for tonight's special, I'm going to have to go into the world of comic strips. A trip made possible by the magic of animator Bill Melendez. I thought I should probably look like Olive Oil, but Bill thought I might be better as a Daisy May type. Whoops, be careful, Bill. I'm very, very ticklish. Okay, Bill, that's great. Now, if you could just shrink me down to size. Hey, that's perfect. Wow, hiya, gang.
Miss Anderson, on behalf of all the comic strip characters, I'd like to welcome you to the world of the Funnies.
Well, thank you, Charlie Brown, and I'd like to introduce all of you to our audience.
Great.
Well, first, let's meet the kids who never grow old. Charlie Brown and Lucy. Nipper from Wee Pals. Dennis the Menace. Nancy and Sluggo. And, of course, Little Orphan Annie. Next, our all-time favorites for the past 40 to 50 years. Blondie and Dagwood. Dick Tracy. Barney Google with the goo-goo-googly eyes. Alley-oop. Oh, and my all-time hero, Prince Valiant. Next, our comic strip heroes who started in the 1950s and 1960s. Pogo, Tumbleweeds, Miss Peach, BC, and Beetle Bailey. Next, our stars from the 1970s. Doonesbury, Broomhilda, Drabble, Kathy, and Hagar the Horrible. Okay, I'd never forget you, the most famous group of animals in the whole world. Snoopy, Daisy, Fred Bassett, Marmaduke, and a newcomer, Garfield the cat. Hold it. We don't have much time. I have to get you all back to my world.
But Lonnie, we've prepared a special song for this occasion.
But if I don't get you all back in...
Don't worry, we'll make it quick. Okay, gang, hit it.
We'll make you smile and make you laugh. Before we're done, we started in your favorites, then radio came along. Then Hollywood and movies, on Broadway we were strong. Now here we are on television, singing little songs. We're not comic business, not funny business. We're not funny business for you.
Hey, that was fantastic. Oh, no. I've only got 15 seconds left. If we don't get back to my world, the show will be ruined.
Don't worry, Lonnie, baby. A little bit of my magic, and we'll all be back in your world. Broomhilda's here, and I ain't no rube. I make things happen on the tube. So, rub your hands and pat your tummies. It's time for those Fantastic Funnies.
Wow, that was some magic and that was some trip. Okay, everybody, wait in your dressing rooms until it's your turn.
Okay, Lonnie.
You know, those characters weren't kidding when they said they were the stars of stage, screen, radio, and TV. After 40 years of entertaining Americans in newspapers across the country, the comic strips became stars of some of the most popular radio shows of the 1930s. And their theme songs often became popular hits as well. One of them is still going strong nearly 50 years later. I'm Popeye the Sailor Man. I'm Popeye the Sailor Man. I'm strong till the finish, 'cause I eat my spinach. I'm Popeye the Sailor Man.
Roll me down.
And one of the most listened to radio programs of them all had this famous theme song. Who's that little chatterbox? The one with pretty auburn locks. Who do you see? It's little orphan Annie. Always wears a sunny smile. Now wouldn't it be worth the while if we could be like little orphan Annie? But my favorite theme song celebrates a comic strip that is 60 years old and still going strong. Barney Google with the googly eyes. Barney Google had a wife 3 times his size. She sued Barney for divorce. Now he's living with his horse. Barney Google with the googly eyes. Barney Google with the googly eyes. Barney Google bet his horse would win the prize. When the horses ran that day, Sparkplug ran the other way. Barney Google with the googly eyes. Boy, they sure don't write songs like that anymore.
Blondie!
Then in the early days of television, one of the earliest hits was Blondie. And the very popular Dennis the Menace.
Why don't we go down and have a bologna sandwich?
Dennis, get in bed.
Okay.
Thank goodness.
Mom, how come you always say thank goodness instead of good night?
And if you don't think the comic strips are even more popular now than ever before, no less than 7 feature motion pictures will be produced this year starring comic strip heroes. Even on the stage, the comics have had smash hits, from Lil Abner to Your Good Man Charlie Brown to one of the biggest hits of all time, Annie. And here to sing 2 hits from that show are 2 of the stars from Annie, Patricia Patz as Annie and Keen Curtis as Daddy Warbucks.
Together at last, together forever. We're tying a knot that never can sever. I don't need sunshine now to turn my skies to blue. I don't need anything but you. You've wrapped me around that cute little finger. You've made life a song. You've made me the singer.
And what's that done you always, Bubba-boo?
Bubba, anything but you.
Yesterday was plain awful.
You can say that again.
Yesterday was plain awful.
But that's
Not now.
that's then.
I'm poor as a mouse.
I'm richer than Midas. But nothing on earth could ever divide us. And if tomorrow I'm an apple seller too, I don't need anything but you. Hamlet needed his mother.
Woolworth needed a shop.
Orville needed his brother. Or else
Pickle,
Trot-Flop.
he used to need work to fill every hour.
I need
don't need anything, anything, anything. I don't need anything but you.
We'll be right back with some of the most famous comic characters of all time. There was a young cartoonist in my hometown, St. Paul, Minnesota, who had been influenced by 50 years of comic strips before him. Everything from Crazy Cat to Popeye to Wash Tubbs and Captain Easy. Then in 1950, he launched his own comic strip that would in turn influence many cartoonists of the 30 years to come. His name was Charles Schulz, and the comic strip was Peanuts. Recently, in his Northern California studio, we asked him about the unusual longevity of the comic strip heroes.
These days, if a television show lasts past the third season, we think it has been a most remarkable achievement. But when you look at some of the comic strips that you have been reading for 10, 20, 30, 40, and sometimes 50 years, then you must admit that this is a most remarkable achievement. For the cartoonist has had to do this literally every day during that long span of time. He has had to come up with something that is consistent with what you as a reader want to see, and yet also has a certain amount of freshness to it. This is not an easy thing to do. A good cartoon figure is one which has been designed properly so that it is so pleasing to the reader's eye that he or she is not even aware of it. The character is simply fun to look at. You look forward to seeing that character either in your favorite morning or your favorite evening paper each day because you are so familiar with him and because you like his or her appearance.
It's supper time. Yeah, it's supper time. Oh, it's supper time. Very best time of day. Do-do-do-do-do-do-do. Supper time. Oh, it's supper time. And when supper time comes, can supper be far away? Bring on the soup dish, bring on the cup, bring on the bacon and fill me up, 'cause it's supper time. Wintertime's nice with the ice and snow, summertime's nice with a place to go, bedtime, overtime, halftime too, but they just can't hold a candle to by supper time. Oh yeah! Bring on the hamburger, bring on the bun, Pappy's little puppy loves everyone, 'cause it's supper, 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 super duper supper, super duper 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 duper.
Also in 1950, cartoonist Mort Walker began one of the most successful comic strips of all time, Beetle Bailey. Beetle, based on a close friend of Mort's, was originally a college student, but with the start of the Korean War, Beetle was drafted into the Army.
Actually, I don't really draw about the Army. I draw about funny guys that happen to be in the Army. They could be in a machine shop, or they could be policemen, or whatever. You know, there's just you have to have the setup of authority and resistance to authority.
We asked Mort in his Connecticut studio if he ever had to resist the authority of his editors with Beetle Bailey.
They objected to me putting a navel when I drew a girl in a bikini. They would take it out. And I kept drawing them, and they would keep taking them out. And I went down there one day, and here was this editor sitting here with a little box. It says, Beetle Bailey's belly button box. And in it were all these little black dots. He was saving them. He would take a razor blade and put them in there. And I thought, I'll be darned, you know, so I'll give him something to do. He wants to be an editor. So I began putting extra navels in around the borders and sometimes on the girl's stomach. I'd put 2 or 3 navels. He'd take them all out. He had quite a collection of these things. One day I had Cookie on the strip receive a very large shipment of navel oranges with girls on the packages. And, of course, every orange had a navel on it. He gave up, never took them out again.
Sergeant Snorkel is modeled after a sergeant that Mort served under as an infantryman in World War II. This sergeant really worked his troops heavily every day over the obstacle course, and Mort frequently refers to those times in his strip.
I'll get you, Beetle. Come back here. What's the trouble? He's trying to get out of running the obstacle course.
During 1950 and 51, while Beetle Bailey was created on the East Coast and Charlie Brown in the Midwest, out in Carmel, California, former animator Hank Ketchum created Dennis the Menace.
I first got the idea for Dennis in 1950, when my son Dennis was 2.5 years old and doing his normal 2.5-year-old thing, and someone at that time said, "You know, your kid's a menace." And I thought, well, Dennis, a menace? And, you know, the words fell so beautifully together that I thought, what a beautiful idea for a panel. So there I was, the day when opportunity knocked in the form of a 2.5-year-old tow-headed boy named Dennis. And I opened the door, and the kid's been bugging me ever since. For 30 years, I've been working for that little fella. He never becomes a juvenile delinquent. He's always kind of in that blessed age that's protected by the law. He's too little to hit and too young to put in jail and too big to put back in the playpen, and he has kind of things his own way.
And lived happily ever after. Did you like that story, Dennis? Dennis?
Dad, you forgot to hear my prayers.
Want to hear my prayers, too?
Alice, wait.
God bless Ron, God bless Tommy, and God bless Joey. And I gotta God bless Margaret. She said God blesses me.
That'd be nice, dear.
God bless Margaret, Mr. and Mrs. Wilson, Grandma and Grandpa, and the milkman, Debbie, Millie, Peter Rabbit, and hey!
Now you're just making up names.
But I didn't God bless you and Dad yet.
Bless you, Dennis. Sweet dreams.
I'm thirsty for some root beer.
No, Dennis. Good night.
A glass of water?
Another day on stage, cameras and lights. Gotta get my lines, gotta get 'em right. But first, I'll read the funnies. Another busy day, the kids are dogging the PTA. But first, I'll read the funnies.
The key to a good start is a chuckle or a smile. Before things get too hot, relax a little while. We got a funny feeling it's gonna be a long, long day. But first, we'll read the funnies to start off with a grin. First, we'll read the funnies, then let the day begin. My work is so exciting, I travel everywhere. But when I need a break, the funnies are right there. I fell for the funnies, now I don't feel so low. I like to take them with me to read when things get slow. I have a whale of a time in the ocean. I count fish when I go to sleep. But I take time out for the funnies when things get a little too deep.
Some fly through the air with the greatest of ease. I fly through the air with the greatest of funnies.
Even when we're working for fun or money's sake, we find it most relaxing to take a funny's break. We may all be different, we all have different ways. On almost any question, we all have something different to say. But we all read the funnies, we all need the funnies, we all love the funnies. We're just funny that way.
Reg Smythe's Andy Capp.
A husband can be the greatest blessing or the greatest curse of a woman's life. But she's never quite decided which.
Back in 1958, one of the most successful comic strips of our time was created by Johnny Hart. We visited with Johnny in his studio in upstate New York and asked him how the famous BC got started.
I used to do magazine cartoons a lot. And for some reason, I always loved cavemen because they were so stupid and simple, you know. But I could never sell them to a magazine. And one night, when I was going home from work, I said, I think I'll go home and create a nationally famous comic strip. And everybody laughed, and they said, why don't you do one on cavemen? You can't sell them anyplace else. And I figured that was a mandate. So that evening, I went home, had about 4 beers, and sat down and created a caveman character, which the obvious name with simplicity would be BC.
The moral of this animated scene from BC is never mess around with a turtle's tail. In 1954, one of the most famous animals in the comics came along, created by cartoonist Brad Anderson, Marmaduke.
The idea for Marmaduke started about 25 years ago, so he's a much older dog than most people realize. And my mother had a dog named Bruno, and I had been drawing some dog cartoons for some magazines at that time. And my mother's dog happened to be a clown, a funny dog, got into a lot of mischief, and served as a very good living model for Marmaduke. Well, one of the most satisfying things about doing Marmaduke all these years is eventually I became a dog. It's true. I began to think like a dog. I had to get myself into the character. And I find that dogs have a lot more character than I ever dreamed.
And here tonight is the animated debut of Marmaduke.
It's time for bed. Turn off the television, Marmaduke. Good night, kids.
Night, Mommy. Marmaduke, wait for us. Beat you upstairs, Marmaduke. Race you.
Where do you think you're going, Marmaduke?
Phil, he doesn't want to go out now that the nights are getting cooler.
It's okay, Dottie. You go upstairs. I'll handle this. Come on, boy. Time to go to bed. Out you go.
Certainly one of the most popular comic strips of all time has been Blondie, created by Chick Young in 1930. The strip is now produced by his son Dean Young and Jim Raymond in their Florida studios.
You know, the Blondie comic strip is in its 50th year. It started in 1930, back when Blondie was known as Blondie Boopadoop, and Dagwood was a minor character. Her boyfriend in those days was a fellow named Hi-Ho Hennepin.
Now, Dagwood was a wealthy guy. And as a matter of fact, because Blondie entered his life, he was completely disinherited by his father and relegated to a middle-class type of living. And I believe this is when the strip took off, when they got into the kitchen and into the domestics that they're in now. If we can make somebody smile or chuckle or laugh in the beginning of their day, especially in today's world, then we feel like we've made their day a little bit better. And that's what it's all about.
Blondie, I can't go through with it. I won't do it.
But you promised you'd try it. Please, dear. Just this once. Do it for me. Please, please.
Just one more can of hairspray and we've got it. How do you like it, Mr. Bumstead?
Oh, honey, it looks fabulous.
Look, what'll my friends say? How will I explain this at work?
Everybody will like it, dear. You'll see.
Oh, Daddy, I love it.
Gee, it looks cool, Dad.
It'll grow on you. Just wait and see.
I can't stand it. I hate it. I hate it. I can't sleep knowing I look like this.
Just try, dear. You'll get used to it.
Boy, it sure feels good to be me again.
Don't touch that dial. We'll be right back with more of the Fantastic Funnies. Starting back in the 1940s, the late, great Walt Kelly and his cast of characters from Pogo dealt with major issues of American social life. And here's a scene from the new Pogo film.
Hey, everybody, come up here. Now pay attention. I've got 3 shells here. There, you notice those? What'd you say? Yes, they're all 3 shells. Just take my word for it. Don't touch them. Don't touch them. You touch them, you pay for them. Now, the thing is, under one of these 3 shells is a P. Now, first, wait just a moment. Let me have your money. Good. That's good. All right. Now, is that the one you want? Are you sure? Let me change them around again. Well, I'm allowed to do that. It's my game. Here, okay? Now, George, is a P under there. Now, let's try this here. Here's 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, there. Made 4 moves. Quick. Oh, shoot. How'd you know that was under there? Where are you from? Are you from out of state? Try this one over here. There's a P under there. Wait a minute. There's P's under 3 shells. You know, I never did get to know how to do this real good. Well, I'm confused. I've lost every bit of money I had here today. I better turn to something else.
Then in the late 1960s, 2 more comic strips emerged that were to deal with various social and political thoughts. The first was We Pals, created by cartoonist Maury Turner.
Well, this is one of my favorite cartoons. It more or less summarizes the philosophy of We Pals, and in it we tell a little story. And in this particular story, it's color unconscious. In the first panel, the pals made a discovery outside the clubhouse. Nipper asked Oliver, "What's that, Oliver?" Oliver's holding a chameleon. "It's a chameleon, Nipper." "A what?" "A chameleon. It can change colors whenever it wants to." "Oh, I don't believe that." So to prove that the chameleon could indeed change colors at will, they put it on a lot of different colors, and sure enough, the chameleon kept changing colors until finally, hey, the poor thing has passed out from exhaustion. But then Diz says, always be proud of your color.
In 1970, a young man just out of college, Gary Trudeau, would launch a comic strip called Doonesbury that would eventually go on to become the first comic strip to win the Pulitzer Prize. Here's a scene from the Doonesbury TV special about a daycare center.
And feeding them and picking up after them and stopping their fights. Yes, but I'm getting paid for it.
How much?
Not enough, honey.
Gene, how are you ever going to be a building contractor if you... I don't want to be a building contractor. Come on, you've got an aptitude. Joni told me.
No, Ellie, I didn't exactly say that. I said that...
Joni, I'm trying to build up her confidence. I don't want to be a building contractor. What are you going to do with your life? Just fritter it away? Well, what are you going to be? A babysitter. You know, Jeannie won't build. I'm good with kids, really. Why won't Jeannie build? She won't build because there are no good role models in the construction industry, especially for blacks. Ella Fitzgerald is black. Ella Fitzgerald is not a building contractor.
Now, wait a minute. Ellie's raised a valid point here. Let's talk about people whose lives you respect. Who are your role models?
A.B. I used to think I'd like to be Billie Jean King, but then I heard about how tennis makes one arm bigger. And then A.B. the accountant. So I switched from tennis to anthropology. I'm very into Margaret Mead right now.
Margaret Mead?
I'd like to study sex in the Caribbean. Perhaps I could keep the books. Can I study sex in the Caribbean? No, Jeannie. Your future is in high-rise, single-dwelling ranch families. In what?
Also in 1970, cartoonist Mel Lazarus, who had created the very successful comic strip Miss Peach 13 years before, created a second hit, which also dealt with the problems of communication in the 70s, Mama.
The idea for Mama occurred to me about 4 years before it actually appeared in print. This was back east. I lived about 10 minutes from my mother, saw her an average of twice a week at least, and spoke to her on the phone about 5-6 times a week. But for some reason, 2 days went by without any contact. And on the afternoon of the second day, the phone rang in my studio, and a voice that sounded vaguely familiar, but had a kind of an edge in it, said, hello, Mr. Lazarus? I said, yes. She said, this is your mother, Frances Lazarus, calling to tell you that my phone number is still 555-1667. And she hung up. I called her back about 5 minutes later, and I said, hello, Mom. She said, yes, who is this? I said, this is your son, Mel. She said, oh, really? What's the occasion? Well, I realized that I had just been party to 2 of the best gags I've ever heard. I mean, stuff that you can't write. That was the very genesis of the strip.
Mama, I don't see life as being grim like you do. To me, life is not to struggle. Life is to enjoy. Life is to dance through. Life is a song.
Life is a song?
Yes, Mama, a song.
My son neglects me terribly. E-I-E-I-O.
Mom, what do you think of my work?
Well, not bad for a boy who eats standing over a sink.
Another 1970 starter in the Funnies is one of the most unsuccessful man chasers in comic strip history. She's a beer-guzzling, cigar-smoking witch named Broomhilda. She hasn't had a date for hundreds of years, but she keeps on trying. Just as her creator, Russell Myers, tried unsuccessfully for 15 years to sell his different comic strips.
As a matter of fact, I became so adept, I was surely the most competent failure in the business. I lived in Kansas City at the time, and I got so skillful that I could get on a plane at 8 o'clock in the morning, be in New York, be rejected by 6 major syndicates, and be home at midnight of the same day. Finally, someone suggested the idea of doing a strip about a witch. And since I'd tried everything else and failed, I thought, well, I might as well try failing with a witch. And the syndicate bought it, it took off, and it's been doing very well ever since for the past 10 years.
I realize this looks like a mourning dress, but if you hadn't had a date in 100 years, you'd probably be wearing a mourning dress, too.
Mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the fairest one of all?
You are the second fairest.
Who's the first?
Him.
You dirty two-faced... Hold it! Why should I mar my lovely hand?
Strike one.
For our show tonight, our camera crews filmed cartoonists in their studios all across the United States. By coincidence, one of our crews was in Cincinnati, Ohio, when there was a weekend newspaper strike, and they captured this dramatic scene with a hidden camera.
Rock and roll. But I don't do this kind of thing, man. I mean, this is family, you know? It's wholesome, it's clean, it's nice. What do you take me for? Some kind of Pat Boone clone? What am I supposed to do? Hundreds of thousands of kids are going to be listening. I don't know how to talk to kids anymore. All right, babies. That was Chuck Berry, one of the masters of rock and roll, and this is the doctor who covers the rest of it on KRP. You know, life is full of surprises. Now, you take the newspaper strike right here in Cincinnati. How could that affect the doctor, you're asking yourselves? I don't even own a caged bird. The point is, it is having an effect on me. And
as part of KRP's expanded public service during this time of no newspapers, I have been asked to fill you in on what's happening.
Let's get to some action now. This is Flash Gordon. Seems like Flash is up on the ice world, and in the first panel, the Queen is talking with Count Malo, kind of a bad-looking dude because he's got a wicked beard and real rich-looking robes, which he probably got by doing some bad stuff. Count Malo reports to Queen Freya that he can find no clues to the man who tried to kill Flash. I'll just bet. And the Queen says,
Keep trying, Malo. We must protect our guests. And by the way, I want you to organize a hunt for tomorrow morning.
The next morning, Freya, her guests, and her bodyguards set out to hunt snow oxen, the favorite meat of the ice world. They track down a snow ox, and Flash brings it down with a single shot. And the animal has fallen near an enormous glacier. The men approach it, ready to pick up the coveted prey and continue the hunt for the rest of the herd. But suddenly, the smell of blood brings a giant ice worm out of a crack in the glacier. The Ice Queen stumbles and falls, and in stopping to help her, Malo falls victim to one of the hideous creature's horrible clutching tentacles. Flash leaps in front of Freya, blazing away at the monster's head and body, and as the ice worm thrashes about in its death throes, Malo confesses to Flash,
I was jealous of you and Freya. I tried to kill you. Kill me. I don't deserve to live.
Flash, always very cool, particularly here on the ice world, says, You've proved you're a man, Malo. Forget the past. So, babies, there's a lot more funnies we could get into right now, but I'm a little spent. I don't think I'm emotionally capable of dealing with Mary Worth right now. So let's just coast along here with the coasters.
In 1954, cartoonist Dick Brown joined Mort Walker to create the highly successful High and Lois comic strip. Then in 1973, Dick created a new comic character that would have the greatest readership of any character developed in the 70s. A Viking by the name of Hagar the Horrible. Dick Brown works in his Connecticut studio with his two sons, Bob and Chris. We asked him where the idea of Hagar had come from.
I was looking for a universal character, one that didn't need to be explained, that anybody anywhere in the world could recognize, the same way they recognize the cowboy, the Indian, the clown. I've always had a fondness for Vikings. Goes back to a Swedish Antipine, I suppose. And how many people walk around with horns on their head?
Egg is a funny little fat Viking. He's sort of a Dark Ages businessman, really. Except he's in sacking and looting. And it's a very, very competitive business.
And he has a family that keeps him busy overrunning Europe and bringing back baking for the rest of the family. There's some people that even say that there's a mild resemblance between Hager and myself. I don't quite see that.
There's a fair wind for England and a moon to light my way. Foes and glory await me, and I can only say farewell.
Hold it. On your way. Take out the garbage.
I'll bet Prince Valiant doesn't have to take out the garbage.
Since comic strips have always reflected the changing American scene for the past 85 years, it is significant that one of the newest comic strips, Kathy, is one woman's look at her contemporary scene. But Kathy Geiswhite didn't start out to be a cartoonist.
I really sort of got into this by accident. I was working in an advertising agency at the time and having a great career and a very pathetic sort of love life. And I used to spend my evenings writing in my diary about it. I've kept a journal for a long time. One night, instead of writing in my journal about my problems, I, for some reason, drew a picture of what my problems looked like. And when I saw them in picture, it was a completely new experience for me. Suddenly, the things that seemed so tragic seemed funny to me.
How about if I put down that my goal is to be the president of a major corporation and make $100,000 a year?
I thought you wanted to get married and live in a little white house with 2 cute kids.
That's my goal, too. I want everything, Andrea. I'm going to do it all. All I need now is a job and a date.
We'll be right back with lots more of the Fantastic Funnies.
Here's Tom Ryan's Tumbleweeds.
I heard the awful news that your horse is sick, sweetie. Is there anything I can do to help?
Yes, Hildegard Hemhager, you can let go of me.
I mean, within reason.
Jim Davis's Garfield the Cat.
A mouse! Get it! Garfield, you didn't even try.
Show me a good Mauser, and I'll show you a cat with bad breath.
You're too fat, Garfield. Why, I'll bet you haven't seen your feet in years.
I have feet? One last olive.
Tickle, 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 tickle.
I think I'm gonna throw up.
Garfield, you're getting too fat.
I am not getting too fat. I'm just ready for the next size kitty bed. That's all.
Prince Valiant was created by Hal Foster in 1937. In collaboration with Hal Foster, who now lives in Florida, John Cullen Murphy draws Prince Valiant in his Connecticut studio. John recently reflected on the meaning of this famous comic strip hero.
In the Prince Valiant feature, we uphold what is good and what is right. This is a period of history that was marked primarily by the code of chivalry. And we're involved with King Arthur and Sir Launcelot and Sir Gawain. And, of course, Prince Valiant takes his place with these great knights of the Round Table.
Certainly the most detailed and illustrative comic strip of all time, Prince Valiant must have extensive color guides for the engraver.
Now, I'm limited to the colors that I can use, to these 64 different colors, variations of red and blue and yellow. But it's amazing the amount of color you can still get out of it. It's really quite a bit of fun doing this, although it's sometimes it's like doing a children's book, a coloring book.
Mort Walker is the president of the Museum of Cartoon Art in Portchester, New York. The museum holds one of the finest cartoon collections in all the world. Mort showed us the work of the cartoonists in the Hall of Fame.
The room we're entering now is the Cartoonist Hall of Fame. Only 16 members have been elected so far. There's R.F. Outcalt. Outcalt drew The Yellow Kid, which began the tradition of the color Sunday Funnies. Later on, at the turn of the century, he created Buster Brown. George Harriman drew Crazy Cat, which many consider one of the greatest artistic achievements in the comics. The wonderful Walt Kelly, who created the internationally famous Pogo. Thomas Nast, the great political cartoonist who took on the corrupt politicians of his day. Charles Dana Gibson, the great illustrator who created the Gibson Girl. Alex Raymond, the creator of Flash Gordon. Winsor McKay, who created the very famous Little Nemo. Jimmy Swinnerton, the creator of Little Jimmy. Walt Disney, of course, the creator of Mickey Mouse, and so many other wonderful characters. Elzie Segar, who created Thimble Theater, and his star, Popeye the Sailor Man. Bud Fisher, who back in 1907 created the wonderful Mutt and Jeff. Billy DeBeck, the creator of Barney Google and Sparkplug. Fred Opper, who created one of the first strips called Happy Hooligan. Roy Crane, who created Wash Tubbs, Captain Easy, and later on Buzz Sawyer. George McManus, who in 1913 created Maggie and Jiggs for Bringing Up Father. And last, but certainly not least, Hal Foster, who created the masterpiece Prince Valiant.
And so for over 85 years, we have had the pleasure of their company, the comics. A poem written by Monty Schultz about his father's Charlie Brown comic strip would seem to apply to all the great cartoonists of the 20th century. Monty wrote, "I salute you, speaker to the world through little boxes. I applaud the 4 little squares a world watches and laughs with mornings. And I share the fortune you grant us, allowing a peek through 4 little windows into your world each day. I cherish the wisdom lessons and the storytelling, and I always treasure the laughter greeting every new morning. Speaker to the world through little boxes, I salute you."
4 little boxes, 4 little squares, 4 little windows for anyone who cares. Boxes to adventure, excitement for a while. Windows to look into, to find a world of smiles. Even if the day is dark and the sky is filled with rain, 4 windows would let the sun in and help you laugh again. 4 little boxes, 4 little squares, 4 little windows for anyone who cares. When you're feeling weary and your outlook's dull and gray, 4 boxes can bring enchantment and brighten up your day.
Good night, everybody.
Even when we're working for fun or money's sake, we find it most relaxing.
Saturday night starts with laughter on the hilarious new hit comedy series, The Tim Conway Show, with special guest Mel Tillis. Then Robert Conrad and Ross Martin star in The Wild Wild West Revisited. Fun and adventure starting Saturday night at 8, 7 Central. Now stay tuned to the 1980 Miss USA pageant next, following Newsbreak.